You know, it's not uncommon for a film to get people talking, become part of that cultural conversation.
Right.
But this Malayalam film, Empuraan, it feels like it's gone a step further.
Yeah.
It's really ignited a political debate in Kerala.
It has.
And it's a highly anticipated sequel to the blockbuster Lucifer, which just came out March 27th, 2025, and has become a real lightning rod, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, absolutely. And for this deep dive,
Right.
we've got a whole bunch of different articles, analyses, you know, just trying to understand why this film has really, I don't know, pushed some buttons and gotten people talking in this way.
Right.
It's clearly more than just entertainment. It's touching on some sensitive political and historical things.
Yeah.
So, you know, our goal here is to kind of look at all these different perspectives and really get to the heart of this controversy.
Yeah, I mean, looking at all of our sources, I think it's fair to say that the core of the issue seems to be the film's portrayal of certain political and historical events. So let's get into it.
Okay.
What are some of these themes in Empuraan that have sparked such strong reactions?
Well, I mean, not surprisingly, Empuraan kind of picks up where Lucifer left off. It's this political thriller. But it's the backstory of Prithviraj Sukumaran's character, Zayed Masood, that seems to be the most controversial aspect, or at least one of them.
Yeah.
The film depicts the violent deaths of Muslim families at the hands of Hindutva activists, including Masood's own family. And this depiction has been pretty widely interpreted as a direct reference to the 2002 Gujarat riots.
So a work of fiction directly engaging with a real and incredibly painful historical event.
Yes.
You can see why that would be a flashpoint.
For sure.
And it seems the film doesn't shy away from contemporary political issues either.
No, it does not.
From what I'm gathering.
Yeah, our sources indicate that the film also includes a critical look at what is being alleged as misuse of central agencies by the ruling party. And of course, this is, as you know, a very hot topic in Indian politics these days. So it raises a really interesting question.
Right.
You know, could this portrayal be seen as a form of artistic commentary on the current political climate?
It certainly adds another layer to the controversy.
It does.
I mean, it's no wonder then that various political parties have weighed in with their own interpretations of the film.
Their own takes.
What kind of reactions have we seen from them?
Yeah, well, the reactions have been pretty strong.
Okay.
You know, the Congress Party, for instance, has come out as a, well, you could say a strong supporter of the film.
Okay.
Praising it for what they see as an expose of what they call the Sang agenda. The Kerala Congress even put out a social media post that suggested that the film is revealing the Sang Paravars, and I'm quoting here, plans to divide Kerala and control its coastline and ports.
So they're really leaning into the film's narrative. I mean, and it seems individual Congress leaders are kind of amplifying this message.
Right.
Is there a strategic element to this, do you think, given their current, you know, political position in Kerala?
That's certainly possible. I mean, Rahul Mamkuthathil, who's a Congress MLA, he actually defended the film on Facebook, and he drew a parallel, this is interesting, with the Kerala story. And criticized what he called the hatred factory of San Parivar.
Wow.
It just goes to show, you know, how different political groups can look at the same film, the same cultural product, and use it in different ways to kind of advance their own ideas.
It's really interesting how, one controversial film can become a lens through which to view the other one.
Exactly.
Now, what about the BJP? How have they reacted?
Yeah, so the BJP, their reaction was, well, it was kind of a roller coaster, wasn't it?
It seems like, from what I'm seeing in the material.
At first, the BJP state president, Rajiv Chandrasekhar, he actually said some pretty positive things about the film.
Okay.
He even said he was looking forward to seeing it. But then, and our sources suggest this happened after some backlash from the RSS.
And just to clarify for our listeners, the RSS, the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, is a significant right-wing Hindu nationalist organization, and they're often considered to be...
Yeah, the ideological parent of the BJP.
The ideological parent of the BJP, yeah.
Right.
So after this alleged backlash, what did Mr. Chandrasekhar have to say then?
Well, he completely changed his tune, put it that way.
Okay.
He posted on Facebook criticizing the film, saying that it was distorting truth.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm quoting directly here, "A movie should be watched as a movie. It can't be seen as history. Any movie that tries to build a story by distorting the truth is doomed to fail." So a complete 180.
Right.
Really emphasizes, I think, those ideological pressures at play here when it comes to, a cultural product that's touching on these sensitive topics.
It really highlights that tightrope walk, doesn't it?
It does.
Between, creating something and then having to navigate the political realities.
Absolutely.
Now, one of the more unexpected reactions, at least to me, seems to have come from the left.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Through what we're seeing here.
It's an interesting one. So Banish Kodieri, who is the son of the former CPIM secretary Kodieri Balakrishnan.
Okay.
He actually came out in support of the film.
Wow.
Yeah. And his statement, which was widely reported, he said, in today's India, if a big budget film is saying that the Sangh Parivar is ruling the country by inciting riots in Gujarat, it takes a lot of courage.
So that's a pretty powerful statement, isn't it?
It is.
Coming from that political background.
Yeah, you wouldn't necessarily expect that.
Right.
And it really shows you how sometimes a critique of what some people see as a dominant ideology can actually bring people together from different sides of the political spectrum.
This film seems to be creating some unusual alignments, or at the very least highlighting shared criticisms across different...
Shared concerns.
Yeah, shared concerns, shared criticisms.
Yeah.
The controversy's gone beyond just words and reactions.
It has.
It seems to have actually impacted the film itself.
Yeah, because the producers have decided to make, reportedly, around 17 cuts.
Wow. Okay.
To the movie.
That's a substantial number of cuts to make.
Yeah, and these cuts are said to include, scenes that depict violence against women.
Okay.
And some of the riot sequences.
Uh-huh.
And then there's also talk about potentially changing the antagonist's name, which was Baba Badrangi, and even muting certain words.
Wow.
In the dialogue, so, they're re-editing the film to resubmit it to the Central Board of Film Certification, CBFC.
So that's a lot of changes.
It is.
It sounds like the filmmakers are under pressure to address these concerns.
They are.
And even the producer himself has publicly acknowledged that, right?
He has, yeah. Gopalan, who's the producer.
Right.
He actually came out and said that he asked the director, Prithviraj, to make these changes.
Wow.
And this was after people said that the film was hurting the sentiments of certain viewers. So, obviously this has sparked a pretty heated debate.
It has.
About artistic freedom versus the need to be sensitive when you're dealing with such inflammatory subjects.
Which brings us to a very fundamental tension, right?
Yeah.
This delicate balance between the right to artistic expression and then at the same time a responsibility to be sensitive to historical events, communal sentiments, especially in a diverse and complex society like India.
Absolutely, yeah. You've got people who support the film and they argue that it's a really important form of artistic expression and political commentary.
Right.
They say that cinema should be a place where you can explore even those uncomfortable truths and really challenge those dominant narratives.
Right. And then you have the opposite perspective, and it seems to be largely coming from right-wing circles, which is that the film is distorting history and potentially, even inciting communal tensions.
Right. Yeah, they're saying that there needs to be a greater sense of responsibility, maybe even stricter oversight when it comes to these kinds of sensitive topics in popular media.
And this really underscores just how big of a role cinema plays.
It does.
In shaping political discourse in India.
Huge.
Malayalam cinema, in particular, has a long tradition of engaging with socio-political issues. It's often...
a mirror.
Yeah, a mirror reflecting and sometimes challenging societal norms and political realities.
Absolutely. And L2 Empuraan, with its, alleged depiction of the Gujarat riots.
Right.
And its critique of, the establishment. It's a prime example of this. But as we're seeing, taking on these sensitive subjects comes with a lot of risk.
It does.
For filmmakers.
And it raises the question of whether this might have a chilling effect on filmmakers in the future. Might they be more reluctant to address these politically charged topics?
Yeah, who wants to invite that kind of backlash?
Right, and that potential censorship.
Exactly.
And this whole situation surrounding L2 Empuraan needs to be understood within this larger context of increasing scrutiny of politically themed films.
Right.
In India, we've seen similar debates around, films like The Kerala Story, The Kashmir Files, where these competing political narratives are clashing on screen.
Yeah, and it shows you how polarized Indian politics is these days.
It does.
And just how sensitive people are about communal relations and these historical events, in this climate.
Yeah.
Even something that's fictional can become very political very quickly.
And in the midst of all of this, we saw the chief minister of Kerala actually watching the film.
Yeah.
Which felt like a pretty significant gesture.
So Pinarayi Vijayan, he watched L2 Empuraan right when things were really heating up.
Wow.
And a lot of people saw that as a show of support for freedom of expression. He was even quoted as saying, freedom of expression must be protected.
It's interesting. It raises the question of what role should political leaders play in these situations?
Yeah, what's their responsibility?
In navigating these cultural controversies.
Absolutely.
And of course, we can't forget about the role of social media.
Of course not. I mean, it's been like a megaphone.
It has.
For this whole debate.
Right.
Political parties, individual leaders, they've been using these platforms to say what they think.
Yeah.
Mobilize support, criticize the other side. It's created this whole public discourse, happening in real time around this film.
It's almost like a digital battleground, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Now, before we wrap up our main discussion, just a small point for our listeners about the film's title.
Oh.
The correct pronunciation of L2, Empuraan, is actually Empuraan.
Sorry.
That's right.
So just a little linguistic insight for you there.
Always good to get it right.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
So to summarize, our deep dive into L2 Empuraan has revealed a film that is, tackling potentially controversial themes, led to a lot of very, very strong political reactions, sparked a debate about censorship, artistic freedom, and I think really highlighted the complex relationship between cinema and politics in India.
It's a perfect example.
It is. It's a case study almost of how a film can become this focal point for these broader societal tensions and political debates.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up, here's a final thought to consider. Given the range of reactions we've seen, everything from the strong endorsements to the demands for censorship, and the fact that the filmmakers did ultimately decide to make those edits, what do you think all of this says about the intersection of cinema and politics in India today?
That's the question. And what potential long-term effects could this have on the types of stories that get told?
Yeah, it's something to think about, for sure.
It really is.
It really is.
It's a lot to ponder, and we encourage you, of course, to go out and explore, the news, the discussions surrounding L2 Empuraan, but hopefully now
with a little more context.
Yeah, with a deeper understanding of what's going on behind the scenes and all of those key issues. So
absolutely.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Appreciate it.
We'll catch you next time.